Why, hello, science students. Say Merry Christmas, Jelly. We're here to bring you a special edition, The Science of Christmas. Intriguing, isn't it? Let's see. This is just part one of a mini series, I think. Maybe. Maybe we'll continue it. We'll see. To offer you some special knowledge into the science of Christmas. Are you ready? The first part here in Science of Christmas is reindeer. Let's get a little bit of an education about reindeer. Reindeer are just beautiful, aren't they? Just take a look at them. Nature has some of the most amazing creatures. The other day, my family and I were watching that new The Christmas Chronicles Part 2 with my favorite actors, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. And in the video, Goldie Hawn calls Dasher a girl. She says something like, Dasher's in there fighting for her life. In fact, she starts to refer to most of the reindeer as girls. See, I guess we used to think that the reindeer of Santa, or we assumed that all of Santa's reindeers were boys. And that might be the case if they were North American reindeer, like our white-tailed deer, mule deer that we have around here. But see, Santa's reindeer are Nordic reindeer. They're from a different lineage and they have different traits. Most of the males actually lose their antlers by October, not the latest. The only ones who carry on antlers into the winter months are the ladies. The girls have antlers and most of them will lose their antlers by November, unless they're pregnant. And if they're pregnant, nature has devised this amazing way of letting them hold on to their antlers a little longer, protection and such. And the ladies that hold on to their antlers the longest through the month of December are baby mamas. That's right. Santa's reindeer are pregnant females. Now, you can take that for what it's worth, or you can look to the side here and look at this reindeer in the month of March, May, December, and February. And what you're looking at is a male of these northern reindeer species. Now, I suppose I should mention here that reindeer really are what North Americans call caribou. In Europe, they're called reindeer, and in North America, we like to call them caribou. And they're actually not the only species of creature here that both males and females grow antlers. The animals that belong to this group, they're called cervids. They're like moose and caribou, of course, elk, and deer. And they all belong to this group of animals where most of the time the males just grow antlers. But in our case here, the ladies also do. But out of all these cervids, reindeer specifically, they are covered from head to toe, antler to hoof, if you will, in hair. In fact, they are the only ones where hair will actually grow all the way over their noses. And that's about to be important here in just a sec. I think our next guy here, this special reindeer, needs no introduction. Let's just talk a second about Rudolph. Rudolph is actually extremely interesting because did you know that because of that hair on top of the reindeer's nose, if you took their nose and you held it up to an ultraviolet light, like really, really close, like seen in the picture here, it would actually glow red. I'm not confident that that's where Rudolph came from, but it is true. They will glow red, and that has to do with all of these blood vessels that run through that really sensitive part of their anatomy. Now, there's lots of creatures that glow. I mean, if you think about it, we have like jellyfish. There's a lot of bioluminescent organisms. Bioluminescence specifically, that's the one that I'm the most familiar with is in insects, and that's luciferin. If you look down in your screen, you see the dextrorotary luciferin molecule. And if you toss a little bit of ATP in there in the presence of oxygen and hopefully They have magnesium running through their body like most essential ions and metals and nutrients. You get this oxyluciferin, which produces light. And that's part of their biological cycle. So there are animals that light up, and so it's really not far-fetched, to see a larger creature, have light. Surely you have seen before doctors use UV light to see underneath the skin. In the top right picture here, we can use it to see sunspots and the damage that's underneath the skin by holding UV light up to the skin. So this practice is commonly used, and that's where I think that it comes from. Reindeer glowing red or red noses under UV light. Okay, so there is a difference if you're a gamer between elves and dwarves, right? But there is also a difference between an elf, and a dwarf if you are a scientist. First of all, there are real dwarves. I mean, right? Everyone knows that there's a condition called achondroplasia. It's the genetic version of dwarfism, and that we can have dwarfs that are disproportionate or proportionate. Proportionate dwarfs usually have some sort of like hormone deficiency of sorts, and so they are proportionately, their limbs and bodies go together, but they are physically smaller than the typical adult. Now, disproportionate dwarfism, or more commonly known as achondroplasia, usually those are have a normal sized torso and they'll have shortened limbs. And this particular type of dwarfism is recessive. So if you look at the bottom right hand side there, you'll see two parents that are carrying the achondroplasia gene, and they have a 25% chance of producing a child with dwarfism. And they got a 50% chance of passing on that gene to their offspring. I have a few adorable creatures around my home that have achondroplasia. Dwarfism is common amongst a lot of different species. In humans, we know a lot about it though. So this is a gene that's found on chromosome number 4. It's on the P arm of chromosome number 4, if you think back to what that means in biology. And it can actually randomly mutate. So there is such a thing as a random mutation for dwarfism to people who have no connection with dwarfism in their genetics at all. For whatever reasons, that location gene likes to mutate, and it does. I don't know specifically what the statistics are, but it does happen. It'll just randomly mutate, and they can have a baby with achondroplasia. So, we've learned more about it as time has gone on here. But one thing I also wanted to bring about was the difference between an elf and an elve. If you ask a physicist what an elve is, E-L-V-E, you might have a different answer than the little red guy sitting on your shelf in your home. There are lots of different types of lightning, and here we go with light again. But these lights that come up during a thunderstorm have these jellyfish-shaped bodies. They're called sprites. Sometimes we call them blue jets. There's different kinds. And then, of course, the elf. And so technically, it is a type of lightning. All right, so finally, we're into some plants. Let's talk about mistletoe. Suppose I should mention there's lots of types of mistletoe, but we're just going to talk about the American mistletoe. Now, there's lots of different types of mistletoe and different species, but the American mistletoe, Phoradendron serratinum, is the one you're most likely to see. And that phoradendron word stands for tree thief. And what these plants do is they root in, sink their roots into tree branches, mostly oak trees. And when that tree goes dormant for the winter, they root in and pull up water from that oak tree. Now that is a type of parasite. It's not completely parasitic though, because what do you notice about these pictures? And that is that mistletoe is still green. So it does create its own sugar. It photosynthesizes, but it does get its water and some other nutrients from living off of the oak tree by basically rooting itself inside of it into a parasitic way, and then it gets to photosynthesize and live really well throughout the winter. And our part 1 edition of The Science of Christmas would not be complete if we didn't talk about the Star of Bethlehem. I knew if I sat here recording a video long enough that we would eventually get visited by my other achondroplasia family member here with dwarfism. This is Callie. Her name's Callie Flower. And if you look really closely to Callie, she also has folded ears, which is a part Scottish fold, I guess you would call it, and dwarf and calico. So she's like a DNA jackpot, I guess, if you will. All right, well, let's talk about the Star of Bethlehem. If you're watching this video in 2020, then you have the best news, and that is that this rare star is going to appear on December 21st in the night sky. So hopefully we will get to see it. But you can imagine 2,000 years ago what this would have looked like. I mean, it would have been quite an event. But really, the Star of Bethlehem isn't a star. It's actually planets. And when you look into the night sky on that day, it is when Jupiter and Venus align. And in that alignment, you will see the brightest celestial body out in the sky. So these two planets are converging, and this conjunction doesn't happen very often at all. In fact, I think the last time that it was seen in the sky to this magnitude was over 800 years ago. So this truly is a one chance in a lifetime or mini lifetime opportunity. So these planets will align very close together in a conjunction, and so they're going to appear so much larger than everything else in the sky. Now, scientists say that if you have really good eyesight, that you might be able to tell the difference between the two, or see the difference between the two. And if you're wondering, Jupiter would be the larger round thing. But it's going to happen pretty quickly too, so you can't, you don't want to miss your chance. So December 21st, shortly after the sun sets and becomes dark, if you look out onto the horizon, southwestward, I believe, you will see in approximately 12 minutes this large conjunction in the sky. It's going to appear extremely bright, much like they would have seen it 800 and 2,000 years ago, appearing over the horizon. Well, I hope you enjoyed your special edition of The Science of Christmas, Hoskins style, and that you prepared a study guide, because there will be a test on this later. I'm just kidding. There will be no test. This is just for fun, and Merry Christmas.